Hello once again, everyone. So, I want to take the opportunity, since I recently got some pieces in, to talk a little bit about some of the new armor I've acquired. Now, this is not going to be a terribly big video. This is just kind of me talking about it a little bit. And as soon as my last couple things get across the pond, then I'll do a full new video on how my harness has changed since the last time I did one. But I just wanted to talk about them since I have them here, and I've got some pretty interesting pieces. So, firstly, the one you might see is my new helmet. Now, there's nothing wrong with my old helmet, but this is actually a rather interesting little bit of history, and also just an interesting helmet in general. So, basically, the way I the way I got this helmet was actually sitting in a bar Christmas Day, and happened to browse one of the various Facebook groups where they sell armor secondhand, and this one popped up for cheap, so I went ahead and grabbed it. Now, what's fun about this helmet is, one, it does make you look like an artillery shell with eyeballs. This is a rather niche little piece, because it happens right in the middle of two other technological jumps. So this is kind of in between a Grand Bassinet and an early Armet. If you don't know the difference between the two, a bassinet, like the helmet I normally wear, would have aventails, things along those lines. Then later they'll evolve to have bevers, and then they will eventually evolve to lock down to the central chest piece and become kind of the main evolution out of the great helm. That being something that immobilizes your head. You can still look around within it, but it is meant for, really, really good foot combat. This kind of comes up round about that time when aventails are starting to be tossed aside. Instead, bevers are getting more complex. And around that time also comes in armets. So armets, meanwhile, are kind of, their main sort of thing is that they have hinges into the cheek flaps. Now this allows for you to have a much closer fitting throat. Now you will still have mail here, but now that mail can be a lot tighter rather than hanging off of the helmet, because with a bassinet you've got to have all this kind of external padding. With an armet, I can make it fit a lot tighter around my neck because I've got those hinges. So really a good armet is just like, it's your head, literally just your head, maybe like 2 inches thicker at that, encased around your neck very, very tightly. And what makes that happen is those cheek hinges. So this kind of comes in about when both of those are coming around. So what's interesting about this, this is based off of a particular piece that is usually attributed or called a Venetian Bassinet. Me and my buddy Stan, who is actually the first person to tell me about the original of this, we call it affectionately the Grand Bassarmet because it's a mix of a bunch of things. But in essence, this would have been used around about kind of late 1300s and supposedly up until about 1420. So, kind of at the height of armor changing and evolving and turning into a lot of cool things, which is perfect for me since that's about the period I like to work within. Now, this helmet, we don't know if it was necessarily used on foot. Of course, every helmet can be used on foot, but it's probably got a heavy equestrian focus, as you'll notice some asymmetry here. It's got solid cheek, but then it's got its hinge on the right side. So if you are in the process of fighting on horseback, so expecting to be hit in the face with a lance or what have you, you want that asymmetry there of thickness. I don't want anything hinging on this side if I can help it. And there's a couple surviving ones currently. The most intact one, I believe, is in the Brescia, and I'm afraid I don't know the rest of the museum name, but I will use its image as actually the thumbnail for this. So what I like about that helmet is because it's kind of in between two pieces, you get the strange alterations to its design. So this one is a little bit large. So this was reproduced. This was meant for bowhurt originally, and so it's built to their standards, but with a little modification, it'll work very well for what I want to do with it. I believe an original would fit much more in, especially around the cheeks, which is why that hinge matters, because the way you would put it on is you open that hinge and actually put your head in sideways, then close it again. Versus this, because it's big enough, I can just slip it right over. On this one, this hinge is real. I can actually open that cheek flap, but they've chosen to weld that shut. So this would be a turnkey if it wasn't welded, and then I would just open the hinge there. They've gone ahead and welded it, which, I mean, it still gets the aesthetic across. I don't need that hinge to put it on, so I don't really mind, but I like that it still at least conveys the look and does have the functionality for whatever reason I ever want to do that. I'm not entirely sure if this button is anachronistic or not. I think it is, but I need a way to keep, of course, the visor down, and so there's a button here on my brow, which if I just push it in, allows me to open up the visor, which gives you a really good look as to how this would have hinged together originally. This whole cheek would open up and it would slot over your head like so. There's an interior padding sewn in that I'm going to muck with as well to make it just a little bit safer. But what really makes this helmet great for me is that one, it was a design I already was very much looking forward to and wanted to commission. Two, it is a really unique and interesting little leap year between two well-known bits of armor. And then three, I can put it on and close that visor myself without difficulty, so that's really what I wanted out of it. So I'm gonna mess around with the padding, I'm gonna add perf plate into the eyes, and then this will be one of my heavier helmets I fight in. What's really nice about it is that it sits all the way on my shoulders, so if I just throw it on, mind you, since I don't have my armor on, it's gonna look a little funny proportion-wise, but when I just throw this on, it sits down onto my shoulders. With a little bit of additive, it'll be about there. This is very comfy, really doesn't get in the way all that much, and if I pop it open, if I can get that button to go, there we go. Pretty much exactly where I want it. So really, I'll even be able to drink or possibly even eat if I'm in this thing, so that's nice. But all in all, just a really cool piece. Like I said, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about it as I continue to experiment with it, but for now at least, I'm a huge fan. It's a great addition, and I'm so lucky that I got it cheap and on Christmas, so happy Christmas me. My next piece is actually a pair of gauntlets that I ordered. So those of you that have watched my harness video will have seen that I was wearing mittens last time from Armstreet, and my major complaint about those was two things. Number one was that they made them to my exact hand specifications, so they fit me extremely well. That's somewhat of a detriment though, because it can get kind of hard to get my hand in there or pull my hand out, which I often need to do since in armor you're kind of helpless. And then the second complaint was that it had a hinged thumb, meaning that you have the back of your hand plate and then you have basically this cut out in steel with a hinge right here. That gives a lot of mobility. I'm not a huge fan of that type of thumb, having fought in that type of thumb for quite a while. It's just a bit of a weak point. The hinges on those have actually bent forward quite a bit. They're currently being repaired, but they're still great gauntlets, don't get me wrong. I was just looking for something else. And then my third complaint was that since I had no fingers, me itching my eye really turned more into me like windshield wipering my face, trying not to hit myself too hard with the steel overhang. But either way, I still loved those gauntlets and they did a great job, but I wanted to get something new. And so I went ahead and went for these halberdier, is what they call them, gauntlets. So these just came in today, actually. And as you can see, they are more based off an hourglass design, but I have a significant plate that overlaps my fingers here on the back, as well as no hinged thumb. Yes, right? These, for ordering them, I went ahead and just upped my measurements just a tiny bit. So basically anytime there was a half measurement or a quarter measurement, I upped it 1. So if it was, 2.5 inches, I went ahead and just, went into 3 or things along those lines, and that made it so it still fits me very, very well, but I can actually get my hands in and out of them without difficulty, and certainly as I continue to break them in, they'll be even better. But already the mobility is fantastic. I'm going to be playing around with them tonight during class, and I'll be reporting more on these again as I use them. But what I already love about them is I have a ton of dexterity. These are still very good. They're very tightly overlapping plates, so I'm not worried about something getting in there. Obviously, the tips of my fingers are not as protected, but that's gauntlets in a nutshell. At first I was a little worried about the size of these cuffs, but honestly, that just means I have good mobility. Really, my favorite bit is without a doubt that plate on the back. That's going to definitely save my hands sometimes. These are dexterous enough that I can wield a longsword in Bloss grip without much difficulty, but also I feel they're hefty enough that I'm not worried about getting hurt in them. So, like I said, I will talk more about these as I use them, but already I am over the moon to have them, and I'm really just even looking more forward to my other armor pieces coming in, which when they arrive, I will also talk about those. They're both coming from Steel Mastery. So, either way though, I just wanted to talk a little bit about these recent acquisitions, as they're pretty cool. You'll be seeing more of them, and so kind of think of this as like the day one, as it will, and as I modify them and try them out, I'll report back onto it. It's been a while since I've talked about armor on the channel, and I want to do that more, basically. But either way, thank you very much for listening to me ramble. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope that you're looking forward to seeing how this evolves as much as I am. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and we will go over some other armor pieces another time.